welcome back to our channel. Most people never look twice at the change in their pockets. A quarter is a quarter, they figure. 25 cents toward a vending machine soda, a meter, or maybe a car wash. But in the quiet town of Billings, Montana, a coin thought to be just another piece of everyday currency would end up sparking a tale of obsession, history, and an unexpected fortune. And it all began with a single 1985 USA $quarter coin. The story begins with a man named Harold Whitman. A retired postal worker, Harold had spent over 30 years sorting letters and delivering packages through snow, sun, and everything in between. When he finally hung up his uniform, he turned to his lifelong hobby to fill the hours: coin collecting. But Harold wasn't chasing rare silver eagles or pristine Morgan dollars. His passion? Everyday coins with hidden secrets. It was late one autumn afternoon in 2019 when Harold stopped at his usual diner for lunch. The place was warm and humming with quiet conversation. Familiar faces filled the booths, and the smell of fresh coffee hung in the air. After paying his tab, the waitress brought him his change: 3 crumpled dollar bills, a nickel, and a quarter. Harold's eyes were immediately drawn to the quarter. It didn't shine any brighter than the others. It wasn't heavier or oddly colored. But there was something about the texture along the rim that caught his eye. Something, faint, almost like a whisper, suggested this coin had a story of its own. He slipped the coin into his pocket, more out of habit than excitement. But when he got home, he placed it under his magnifier and began to study it. He turned on the small lamp at his desk, the one he always used when examining coins. The magnifier lens revealed a world invisible to the naked eye. What he discovered over the next few hours would send him down a rabbit hole of research, speculation, and eventually, into the annals of numismatic history. This 1985 quarter, minted in Philadelphia, carried a subtle but crucial flaw. The eagle on the reverse side seemed slightly off-center. More than that, there were ghost-like impressions beneath the main design, like remnants of a previous image, half erased but not forgotten. The feathers on the eagle's wings showed faint traces of doubling, and the letters along the rim bore minute duplication, something that only shows up during a specific kind of minting error known as a double die. Harold suspected he was holding a rare double-struck quarter, possibly a transitional error or even a double denomination mistake. He consulted his reference books, reached out to online collector forums, and eventually, submitted the coin to a reputable grading service. The wait was excruciating. Days stretched into weeks. Then the results arrived. The coin was classified as a double denomination error, a spectacular anomaly where a quarter planchet is struck with dies intended for another coin, possibly a nickel. Even more remarkable was its grade, mint state 66, with strong luster and minimal wear. The expert remarks noted the clarity of the overlapping features and the near-pristine preservation of the surface. To find such a coin in circulation was nearly unthinkable. News spread quickly in collector circles. Harold, once a quiet figure at coin shows, suddenly found himself fielding emails from auction houses and private collectors. At an auction in early 2021, the coin fetched an eye-watering $112,000, though experts estimate that similar 1985-era quarters, depending on condition and type, could command anywhere from $76,000 to $135,000. But this story isn't just about money. It's about discovery. About the thrill of recognizing something special where others see only the mundane. Harold's find sparked a new wave of interest in 1985 quarters. Collectors began combing through their coin jars, attending swap meets, even requesting quarter rolls from their banks to sift through in hopes of striking it rich. Some found nothing, others found minor curiosities, but all shared a renewed sense of wonder at the history carried in pocket change. From a design standpoint, the 1985 quarter doesn't stand out at first glance. The obverse features George Washington's stoic profile, the same design used since 1932, inspired by John Flanagan's sculpture. The reverse shows a bold eagle with wings spread wide, clutching arrows in its talons, symbolizing the strength and readiness of the United States. Yet, in certain rare cases, this standard coin becomes a historical artifact, an unintended glimpse into the workings and errors of the U.S. Mint. Harold's personal life shifted subtly after the discovery. His story appeared in local newspapers, and he was invited to speak at a regional coin collectors convention. But fame never changed him. He still visited his favorite diner, still chatted with the waitress who unknowingly gave him that rare coin, and still searched through spare change with the same quiet reverence. Today, Harold keeps a framed photograph of that coin above his fireplace. The actual coin is securely stored, insured, and occasionally displayed at exhibitions. He still collects, though with a quieter joy. It's not always about what the coin is worth, he says to anyone who asks. It's about what it reveals. The 1985 USA quarter reminds us that even in the most ordinary corners of our daily lives, hidden value lies waiting to be discovered. So next time you get a handful of change, take a second look. History, mystery, and maybe even a small fortune, might just be hiding in plain sight. In a quiet suburb on the outskirts of Madison, Wisconsin, there lived a retired schoolteacher named Evelyn Carter. She wasn't one for extravagance. Her home was modest, her routines predictable, and her pleasures simple: crossword puzzles, tending to her garden, and once a month, visiting the local flea market. She had lived in the same neighborhood for over 30 years, teaching generations of children and guiding them not just through textbooks, but through the values of honesty, curiosity, and attention to detail. It was on one of those breezy Sunday mornings in mid-September, beneath the fading awning of a second-hand collectibles booth, that Evelyn's journey into numismatic lore truly began. The booth was a familiar one, run by an elderly veteran named Howard who kept everything from Civil War buttons to vintage postcards. He always greeted Evelyn with a smile, knowing she had an uncanny ability to spot oddities in the mundane. All because of a small, ordinary-looking 1992 USA $quarter coin. Her fate would change. It was nestled in a dusty box labeled "loose change" for $1. She wasn't actively looking for treasure, but something about the coin's soft luster under the sunlight caught her eye. She picked it up, rolled it between her fingers, and added it to her 4-coin selection, mostly out of curiosity rather than intent. She couldn't have known then that this particular quarter would rewrite her quiet life. Back home, Evelyn did what she often did with coins she found interesting. She pulled out her magnifying glass and sat by the window that overlooked her late-blooming marigolds. Her coin collection wasn't massive, but it was thoughtful. She looked at this quarter more carefully. Something didn't sit right. The mint mark was missing. The edges were unusually smooth. The detail on George Washington's profile seemed sharper, almost like it had been hand-chiseled by an artisan rather than struck by a machine. The coin almost shimmered in a way others didn't. At first, she assumed it was just worn from circulation. But a closer inspection revealed a subtle peculiarity. The coin's reverse side, the iconic eagle with wings spread, had a faint doubling on the "United States of America" lettering. Her breath hitched. It couldn't be, could it? She flipped the coin again and again, noting the color was slightly off from other quarters. It had a grayish tone, slightly lighter, almost like a nickel. She reached for the worn spiral notebook she kept by her recliner, the one filled with hand-scribbled notes from decades of learning about coin variations and minting oddities. Evelyn had read once about the elusive, close AM variety, though that applied more to Lincoln cents. Still, the more she looked, the more she suspected this coin was something unusual. She spent hours cross-referencing with books, online forums, and even old VHS tapes she had recorded from numismatic specials in the 90s. Driven by excitement and the whir of curiosity, she sent the quarter off for grading and authentication. The response came weeks later, a letter from the grading service she'd used for years. Inside, carefully packaged, was her quarter, now slabbed and labeled. But it was the note attached that made her eyes widen. She read it over and over again, hands trembling. Her 1992 quarter was a rare off-metal error, struck on a nickel planchet, likely due to a transitional minting mishap. What made it even rarer was the pristine state of preservation. It received a mint state 67 grade, an almost unheard of level for a coin that had once sat in a flea market bin. The letter also confirmed slight die rotation, increasing its desirability among specialists. Word got out fast. Collectors across the country reached out with offers. Auction houses began calling. Evelyn had never thought about selling it, but when a private collector from New York flew in to meet her, offering a check $4.96,000, she realized this wasn't just a hobby anymore. Numismatic publications listed similar error quarters fetching between $65,000 and $122,000, depending on condition and error type. Her find, pristine and unusual, sat right at the high end, but what made the story so compelling wasn't just the coin, it was Evelyn. She became a sensation in the collecting world. A quiet woman with a keen eye and a good heart, who found a rare treasure simply by following a gentle curiosity. She appeared on a local news segment, holding the coin like it was a delicate piece of the moon. She spoke with eloquence and warmth about the joy of discovery. Her voice trembled not from nervousness, but from the realization that this little piece of metal had a story to tell, and she had been the one to listen. The 1992 USA quarter dollar is typically unremarkable in the grand scheme of U.S. coinage. Featuring the standard obverse of George Washington and the classic heraldic eagle on the reverse, it marked no special event or redesign. But that's precisely what makes these rare errors so valuable. They are hidden anomalies in a sea of uniformity, accidents that create art, rarity, and intense demand. In the months following her discovery, Evelyn used part of the money to donate new books to the local school district where she had once taught. She also started a coin club at the senior center, offering free lessons and starter kits to anyone curious. "You don't need money to start collecting," she often said. "Just patience and wonder." The club soon grew beyond the senior center. Children from nearby schools came for weekend workshops. Families started attending together. She became a local legend. Today, Evelyn's quarter remains in a private collection, occasionally loaned to exhibitions and collector conventions. It was even featured in the Smithsonian's traveling coin exhibit titled Minted Mysteries, America's Rarest Errors. And Evelyn herself? She still walks through that flea market every now and then, still picking through boxes, still curious. Because in her heart, she knows that history doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it jingles softly in the palm of your hand, waiting for someone to notice. The story of Evelyn Carter and the 1992 USA quarter is not just about a valuable coin, it's about the extraordinary hidden in the ordinary, and the power of curiosity to change a life forever. It's a reminder to us all that great discoveries often begin in the smallest, most unexpected moments. And sometimes, they come with just 25 cents worth of potential. In the early months of the year 2000, as the United States danced into the new millennium with confetti, countdowns, and cautious optimism about Y2K, a quiet but powerful transformation was taking place, not in technology or politics, but in the palms of ordinary people. It came in the form of a small, copper-nickel coin, the 2000 USA quarter dollar. Most, it was just change, tossed into vending machines or pocketed after coffee purchases. But this quarter, minted in the dawn of a new era, carried with it more than just 25 cents of value. It bore a piece of history, a reflection of a nation stepping boldly into the future while holding tightly to its roots. The coin's obverse featured the stoic profile of George Washington, a familiar face etched into American consciousness since 1932. Yet, on the reverse, a wave of change was taking shape. The 50-state quarters program had launched just the year before, and the excitement was palpable. The year 2000 brought 5 new state designs: Massachusetts, Maryland, South Carolina, New Hampshire, and Virginia, each telling a distinct story of heritage, pride, and revolution. Among collectors, the 2000 quarters sparked a frenzy. Families collected them from change, children proudly stored them in glossy cardboard folders, and numismatists scrutinized each mint mark under magnifiers. But beyond the enthusiasm, a handful of quarters emerged that defied all expectations. One such coin was found by a retired postal worker named Harold, in rural Pennsylvania. Harold had been sorting through a box of change saved over years when he stumbled upon a 2000 Virginia state quarter with a curious anomaly. The entire reverse was slightly doubled, and the edges bore a barely visible misalignment. At first glance, it seemed like nothing, just a minor flaw, but curiosity led him to a local coin shop, where the dealer's eyes widened. This wasn't just a flawed coin, it was a rare misstrike from the Philadelphia Mint, a small production error that resulted in an ultra-scarce variation. Only a handful were known to exist, and here's where the story takes a turn. In a private auction, that single quarter, weighing just over 5.67 grams, sold for a breathtaking $96,500. It wasn't encrusted in diamonds. It didn't glitter with gold. Yet its uniqueness, its story, and its rarity elevated it into the six-figure realm. And others like it have fetched between $50,000 to $110,000 depending on condition and certification. For many, it was a wake-up call. The 2000 quarter was no longer just a memory of a new century. It became a treasure hunt. Suddenly, drawers were emptied, coin jars spilled, and people across the country began scouring their change in search of a miracle. Beyond its value, the 2000 quarter represents an era of transformation. The design of the Virginia coin, for instance, showcasing the three ships, Susan Constant, Godspeed, and Discovery, pays homage to the 1607 founding of Jamestown, the first permanent English settlement in North America. The detail was astonishing, each sail catching wind as if frozen in motion. What makes the 2000 quarter so captivating is not just its commemorative design, but the subtle intricacies that slip past quality control and end up making history. Die breaks, off-center strikes, double dies, these imperfections, often unnoticed, become the hallmarks of rarity. Take the story of Nina, a second-grade teacher in Oregon. She had always encouraged her students to learn about history through everyday objects. One day, during a class activity, a student brought in a New Hampshire quarter dated 2000 with an odd ridge along the rim. Intrigued, she took it to a coin show over the weekend. The verdict? A partial collar strike, rare, clean, and valuable. It was later appraised at $78,000. What began as curiosity had turned into a life-changing discovery. Nina donated part of the sale to her school and created a scholarship fund in her district, and so, these little metal discs, often forgotten in cushions or left in parking meters, proved once again that stories, value, and history can be held in the smallest of things. The 2000 USA quarter, particularly with its state-specific variants and rare minting errors, became a symbol not just of patriotism or artistry, but of possibility. In a world chasing digital wealth and virtual assets, the timeless allure of tangible treasures, of coins that pass through countless hands, remains unmatched. And as long as we look closely, as long as we pay attention to the seemingly ordinary, we just might discover something extraordinary. The next time you find a 2000 quarter in your change, take a second look. You might just be holding a piece of numismatic magic, a coin worth far more than its face value, both in dollars and in the story it tells.